They call it a crime ring involving more than $100,000 in stolen bourbon. Now investigators say 9 people face charges in the case.
Investigators cannot understand why someone would do such a thing. A dog died after they say he was dragged by a car.
There's a recall of Blue Bell ice cream products right now, and health department officials are making sure they're not on the shelves.
Tracking, alerting, protecting. This is WKYT News at 6.
Good evening. It's a mystery that's received worldwide attention. What happened to thousands and thousands of dollars worth of bourbon stolen from 2 Franklin County distilleries?
Tonight, investigators say they have finally made some answers. They say the thefts are part of a bigger crime ring, and now 9 people have been indicted. Today, investigators talked about what helped them crack the case. Sean Moody is live for us with our top story at 6. Sean?
Well, this case first grabbed international headlines back in 2013. That's when Franklin County Sheriff Pat Melton first announced that more than $25,000 worth of bourbon was missing from Buffalo Trace Distillery. Today, Melton announced his investigators had recovered more than $100,000 of bourbon stolen from Buffalo Trace Distillery as well as Wild Turkey Distillery. Melton said the thefts began back in 2008.
It's an ongoing pattern, and this is probably the tip of the iceberg.
A Franklin County grand jury indicted 9 people on a charge of engaging in organized crime. Melton said 3 of those people worked at either Buffalo Trace or Wild Turkey.
Toby Kurtzinger worked on the loading docks, and as a senior employee, worked down there and had access to about everything.
He said a tip led them to Kurtzinger's home, where he said investigators found 5 barrels of stolen Wild Turkey bourbon. From there, he said the Attorney General's Cybercrimes Unit analyzed phones and computers. He said they turned up communications about selling the bourbon, and it involved, of all things, a softball league.
Put Gilbert Kurtzinger here, there's tentacles that go out to these different folks, and that's how they interconnected throughout the state, was friends through softball.
Assistant Commonwealth's Attorney Zach Becker said so far investigators have recovered bottles and barrels of bourbon from Franklin, Scott, Harrison, and Laurel counties. Melton believes there's more bourbon out there. Now, Melton said several of the people involved have reached out through attorneys to his office to see about turning themselves in. Live in Frankfort, Sean Moody, WKYT.
Sheriff Melton said the investigation is still open and his office is still hoping to recover more of the stolen bourbon. Here is a recap of the new information on the bourbon heist. 9 people were indicted and charged with engaging in organized crime. Investigators say the crime ring operated from 2008 to this year, targeting 2 distilleries, Buffalo Trace and Wild Turkey. 2 people charged worked at Buffalo Trace, one of them at Wild Turkey. The rest are believed to have met through, as you heard Sean say, a softball league. In all, investigators recovered more than $100,000 in bourbon. The majority of it will be destroyed because its safety cannot be guaranteed.
The details are disturbing. Tonight, investigators are trying to find the person responsible for causing a dog's death in Laurel County. They say the dog was tied to the back of a car and dragged down a road. Phil Pendleton talked to animal rescuers today. It's a story new at 6.
A driver taking a child to school noticed a dog slowly raising his head out of a ditch line on Kentucky 1006 near London.
He suffered greatly.
Homeward Bound was called, and the dog, barely alive, was taken to Cumberland Valley Animal Hospital.
It was clear the dog had been dragged brutally and then dumped.
Police recall they now call it an open investigation. Marks were found all along Kentucky 1006, close to where the dog was found in the ditch. The dog was euthanized, its injuries described as extremely graphic.
The dog's jaw was broken, his tongue was severed. He had severe burns down both sides of his body, and his right shoulder was completely exposed.
The dog did have a collar, but officials say there's no telling who it belonged to, but they believe it was someone's pet.
Prior to the injuries, the dog appeared to be well taken care of. He's well fed, he's hydrated.
So now the question, why would someone drag the dog such a great distance and leave him to die in a ditch?
It rips my heart out to think how much he suffered. He was in excruciating pain and for a lengthy amount of time.
The Humane Society of the United States is offering a $5,000 reward for information to solve the case. In Laurel County, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
Homeward Bound tells us the dog was euthanized because his injuries were so bad. They say it would not have been humane to leave him in the shape he was in.
Tonight, investigators in Laurel County hope a larger reward will lead to answers in an unsolved double murder. Police found Donnie Jackson and his wife Sharon dead in their Slate Ridge Road home last month. They say both had been shot and the home was set on fire. Thanks to an anonymous donor, police say the reward in the case is now increased to $10,000. Friends of the couple say the family needs justice.
Nobody deserves what happened to their people, but Sharon was salt of the earth. She didn't bother nobody.
The Laurel County Sheriff's Office says tips in this case can be made anonymously. Lexington police say they still have few clues to go on as they try and solve the murder of a pizza delivery driver. Police say someone stabbed Salahuddin Jitmood Sunday night at an apartment complex on Trent Circle. Police are still asking for the public's help in this case. So far, police have not made any arrests. Jitmood's friends also tell us they're organizing a public memorial for him.
A man on his way to work this morning died in a crash on a busy Lexington road. It happened on Tates Creek Road at the Parliament Way intersection. Investigators say the driver of Mitsubishi swerved to miss a pickup truck turning onto Tates Creek. They say the Mitsubishi clipped a Mercedes before then being T-boned by a Chrysler. The Fayette County coroner says a passenger in the Mitsubishi, 19-year-old Daniel Stamper, died in the crash.
It appears that he died from just a blunt impact. There's not that much as far as external injuries to him, so obviously there must be quite a bit of internal, and there was a pretty good void in the Mitsubishi car.
Investigators say Stamper was not wearing a seatbelt. They also think speed played a role in the crash. 2 other people were injured in the crash, but their conditions are not known tonight.
He escaped from prison more than 40 years ago, but now a man is back in custody after police say he turned himself in. Investigators say Clarence David Moore was serving time for theft when he escaped from a North Carolina prison in 1972, but he'd been living in Frankfort in recent years. Jordan Valines is tracking the investigation tonight.
For decades, David Moore's secret remained safe.
You think you know somebody, and then all of a sudden, boom.
His criminal past and escape from a North Carolina prison in 1976 was a reality he hid from in the hills of Kentucky.
You can't make this up.
But on Monday, after 4 decades on the run,
It's a remarkable story.
Moore turned himself in.
He was very emotional, and was I think glad to get it all behind him.
The sheriff says Moore's failing medical condition is what prompted his surrender. He's a paraplegic and had a stroke that affected the right side of his body. Eventually got to the point, the sheriff says, where he needed medical assistance from the government. Detectives tell us that David Moore had been living along Seneca Trail for several years and in Franklin County since 2009. Now, neighbors say he mostly kept to himself along with the woman that he was living with. Turns out she didn't know about his past as well. On Monday, deputies transported Moore from his quiet residential life.
They just seemed like nice, quiet people.
To the hospital and then to jail. All the while, neighbors were still reeling over this surreal reality check.
Amazed that I lived next to someone who was a fugitive.
Hard to believe, she says, how little we know about the people we call our neighbors. In Frankfort, Jordan Valines, WKYT.
The Franklin County jailer has been in touch with the North Carolina Department of Corrections, and it will be up to them to take Moore back to North Carolina.
You probably felt those gusty winds today, and now we're tracking more rain across parts of some of the state. Chief Meteorologist Chris Bailey has an early look at the forecast. Chris?
Yeah, today was one of those white knuckle days on the steering wheel, especially if you're in a high-profile vehicle. A wind kind of bouncing you around just a little bit. Those gusts were approaching 40 miles per hour. Let's look outside, see what we can find as of now. Mix of sun and clouds in Lexington, 60 our current temperature, and that wind still gusting at 32 miles per hour as of right now. Those gusts, especially across northern Kentucky, are cranking up to anywhere from 25 to a little greater than 30 miles per hour. To the south, not as gusty. 57 cool spot into Richmond, 64 London, 60 Lexington. Hello, Frankfort at 62 degrees. Your current thermometer reading. Live First Alert Defender picking up on some showers to the south, but the Lexington Metro is in pretty good shape right now. Most of eastern Kentucky looking good as well. Those gusty rains we were seeing a little more prominent on Defender about an hour ago now, beginning to go by the wayside, though another round or two of some showers and storms storms taking aim at parts of western Kentucky, and that's a trend that'll carry us into later tonight and especially for the day tomorrow. Some gusty showers and a rumble of thunder pushing on into town. That is followed by frosty cold temperatures, and all of that overall is part of a setup that is just nasty for the next 7 days. I will show you what I mean by the word nasty when I come back, guys, with the hour-by-hour forecast here in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Chris. Well, many of you could have them in your freezer right now. Tonight, Bluebell has recalled all of its ice cream products because of ongoing listeria concerns.
10 cases of listeria have now been linked to Bluebell ice cream. So today, the Fayette County Health Department went to stores around Lexington, making sure Bluebell products were not on the shelves. Sam Smith has the story.
Health Department officials have been working all day on this, making sure Bluebell products are not for sale. Officials say there are about 500 stores in the county that sell groceries, but not all of them sell Bluebell products. But they're making sure managers are aware of the recall and that they're not on the shelves. Luke Mathis says one locally owned store was unaware of the recall, which is common.
We focus really on probably the non-chain stores, those without parent companies. A lot of the places like that, they don't get these recalls.
I hope and pray that this gets over with quickly. We can't wait to have, well, I can't wait to have my bars.
Isabel Price is a fan of Bluebell ice cream. She plans to wait out the recall rather than buy a different brand.
I decided to wait, so we haven't bought anything right now.
The recall is all about keeping people safe from a possible listeria contamination, and the health department is doing its part.
We want to eliminate that product, eliminate customer access to that product as soon as possible.
Now, for those that have already purchased Bluebell products recently, you're asked to take them back to the store to get a refund. In Lexington, Sam Smith, WKYT.
Bluebell says their products could be off the market for 2 or 3 weeks. The company is still trying to figure out how its manufacturing lines became contaminated with listeria.
Follow WKYT online at WKYT.com. Join the conversation on Twitter and become a part of the WKYT Facebook family.
A Lexington student says he is lucky to be alive. A large tree crushed his SUV just minutes before he would have been inside it.
This morning, William Mullet was about to leave his home on Winding Wood Place in the Heartland neighborhood to drive to school, but he says his mother stopped him to tell him about something. Then, a few minutes later, this huge tree fell on his SUV.
Amazing that I was not in the car, because there's no way I could have gotten out of the car or moved the car in time. It was instant how fast it fell.
The family thinks gusty winds this morning, along with the recent rain soaking the soil, both played roles in causing that tree to fall, but they're going to have an arborist come in to take a look at the tree.
University of Kentucky researchers are testing a new drug they say could help patients diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The FDA approved the use of the drug called Duopa earlier this year. The Kentucky Neuroscience Institute has been organizing test trials for it in recent months. The drug comes in pump form. One Georgetown farmer who's taken part in the trial says the drug is helping him manage his symptoms.
Was basically doing everything from the pickup truck. Now I'm back on the job.
Side effects of the drug are similar to those patients may have if they use the pill form. The manufacturers of the pump say patients should see a movement disorder specialist if they're interested in using Duopa.